Hello, everyone. It's Paul Giamatti.
And I'm Stephen Asma, and this is your Bonus-wag with
Errol Morris. I think also that sort of direct address camera thing that you sort of...
The direct address camera thing, the Interrotron.
There we go. Exactly. That's it. Yeah. Explain that, actually.
I became obsessed with eye contact. And if you're interviewing somebody, how do you get them to look you directly in the eye? And what I did is I invented a system using two teleprompters where you're really looking directly into the eyes of the person you're interviewing.
Yeah.
And vice versa. They're looking directly into your eyes.
Yeah.
And I made a whole lot of films using this device, which I'm still rather fond of.
Yeah.
Not always, but sometimes.
Yeah. Is there some sense that because they're looking into an image of you, they're not looking literally at you now. They're looking at your eye in an image. They're looking at a screen. And is that because in person, it's harder to get somebody to look you in the eye because the presence of a person makes it more difficult for people?
Well, think of what happens if you're sitting with a person, you're looking you directly in the eye and the camera is off to the side.
Yeah.
They're not looking at the camera, they're looking at you. If they're looking at the camera, they're not looking at you. My device solves that problem. Mm-hmm. You're looking at me and directly into the camera.
Into the camera.
At the same time.
But I know for myself, because I have to be interviewed all the time, that I'm more comfortable, that I will find that I'm more forthcoming when I'm talking to the image of the person rather than when I'm necessarily right in the room with the person. That the energy can be a little different, that the actual presence of a person can actually, I think, change how forthcoming a person can sometimes be too.
And most interviewers are assholes.
Yes.
So that's also unpleasant.
Yes. But I also think that the removing them slightly makes it a little bit more tolerable that they can be an asshole, or that you can sort of deal with them a little bit better because they're a bit of a remove.
Yep.
But I always find that super interesting, that I'm sort of more comfortable the more removed the person seems to be for me. That's not true when I'm acting. So, it's like I want the person there in the room with me. I want the eye contact. But there's something about the sort of interrogation thing seems different when the person is right in front of me.
Well, it is. I mean, when you're acting, you're not engaging the camera necessarily. You're engaging that person you're talking to on a set.
Yeah.
And vice versa. In an interview situation, it's a certain kind of interview. I like that effect.
To what extent actors are also engaging the camera and the other person is a really fucked up thing about actors. But there is a sort of interesting, you're playing both things the same way you're playing an audience and the actor on stage with you. You have this kind of multiple mind thing going.
But do you also imagine the audience as well? Because you've got camera, you've got character, and then you realize, there's going to be people watching this on TV or on screen. Are you thinking of them as well?
No, not really. No, I don't think so. Not really.
Because writers have to think about the audience a lot as they're writing.
I suppose so.
Don't you see yourself primarily in the scene?
Yes, for the most part, yes. And that's when, in theory, it should be best. But it's the most peculiar thing with film acting to me, the first time I did it, too, that was so strange and striking and took me a long time to get used to, was when they came in for a close-up, when it went from wide shot, two shot, then you get into single shot and it's not even anymore including over somebody else's shoulder onto you. Now it's just you. I was incredibly jarred and felt really alienated from the other person and felt that who was I now acting with? Because the person was behind the camera and the principal sort of interlocutor I seemed to suddenly have was this piece of machinery in my face. And it took me a long time to get around that and be able to communicate with the person and still be in the scene. But there is some certain
with the
strange...
person with the person
the person's behind the camera. The person is now behind the lens. You know, they're standing next to the lens or they're standing behind the lens. And it's strange. And suddenly you are aware. I think yes, you're principally involved in the scene, but there is an awareness too sometimes of the camera as well. And it's a weird thing. It's a very weird thing.
One of the things that John le Carré says in your film is, he says, he's talking about spies, and he says they have this kind of self-imposed schizophrenia. And I was thinking about, Paul, I was just thinking about acting, because I thought spies and actors have to have this kind of duality. I was just wondering, well, you know, what you thought about that. Like you're yourself, but you're not yourself. And that becomes kind of intoxicating or something.
It is. I mean, it's addictive in some way. And I imagine it's probably the same for spies. Yeah, the pretense is obviously addictive in some way, or you're predisposed to it in some way.
Although I don't quite see the element of betrayal in acting. Maybe I'm just not being imaginative enough.
Yeah. I'm just curious, when you've worked with actors, which I'm assuming you've worked with actors and on various, do you enjoy working with actors? Do you like it better then because they'll do what you tell them to do, or they'll say, you know what they're going to say? Do you enjoy it working with actors?
I love working with actors.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Particularly good ones.
Uh-huh.
And because they bring something to the party that's unexpected.
What is it you think distinguishes a good one from a bad one? I'm just curious.
The ability to, well, you probably know a lot better than I do.
Well,
but the ability to inhabit a part, to bring something to life. This film that I just finished, which has this film inside of a film, the woman that I work with, Gabriella, was just absolutely fabulous.
Yeah.
Fabulous actress.
Yeah.
Lucky to have her. You get to see something happen on camera that can often be extraordinary. And if they're really good, unexpected.
Yeah. It should be surprising. That's a nice thing if that happens.
It's also my theory of directing, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Is at first you never tell people what to do or what you want, because maybe they know already. And by just letting them do something, they may do it perfectly.
Yeah.
And by telling them what to do, they've lost that.
Yeah.
You've just destroyed it.
Can I tell you?
For no good reason.
Can I tell you how rare it is, though, that somebody does that? You'd be shocked at how rare it is that somebody actually does that. That lets you just leaves you alone. Just leaves you alone. Just leaves you alone.
Well, we should work together.
Well, sure. Listen, I'm available now. I'm unemployed. I'm definitely unemployed. No, I mean, but that's extremely rare. But that level of just trusting to see what's going to happen. But I think that must be coming from a place of where you don't know what the hell's going to happen. Wow. When with most of the stuff you've made, you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, you're coming from documentaries where that's the whole thing. You don't know. And so I think that must be something of that perspective on it, because most feature directors are coming in already telling you right off the bat what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it.
I call it the shut the fuck up school of direction.
Nice. Absolutely. I'm all for it. I'm from the shut the fuck up school of acting too. It's like, I just am like, just shut up and do it. Although I will find it useful sometimes to hear they're very much more articulate actors than I am about what we're doing. And it's useful sometimes because I'll hear things that I'll go, oh, I hadn't thought of that, or I hadn't really thought that through, or that's an interesting point that had sort of escaped me.
Do you approach it sort of more instinctually? Like, I guess both of you, like in your craft, are you just trying to go with what your gut is telling you, or do you like try to work out theoretically what you're about? I'm assuming it's more gut instinct.
For me, it is, but I mean,
in this recent film, I was interested in what my actors would give me,
right, and
without my fucking with them. And often, I'm really puzzled by the idea of directors that need, the 60, 70, 80, 90 takes, whatever. I like one or two. And
nice wasn't it Kubrick did like a ton of takes?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think sometimes the idea with doing a ton of takes, I mean, some of it, I don't know. you hear about different guys who.
But I like Kubrick, so what can I say?
Yeah, so do I. And I mean, I think some of his reason for doing that was apparently to kind of try to get people to stop acting, I think, was to kind of get them so tired that they stop doing too much stuff and things like that, and it becomes less sort of, which, there may be something to that. I don't know.
Chinwag is a production of Treefort Media and Touchy Feely Films, hosted and executive produced by Paul Giamatti and Stephen Asma. Executive producers for Treefort are Kelly Garner and Lisa Ammerman. Dan Carey is executive producer for Touchy Feely. Our series producer is Rachel Whitley Bernstein. Original theme music by Luke Topp, with additional music by Via Mardot. Oscar Guido is our executive in charge of production. Tom Monahan is head of audio for Treefort. Audio production supervision by Matt Dyson. Editing and mixing by Jeff Neal. Animation created by Alex Sokol. Research assistance by Aidan Brooks. Lastly, for more information, go to chinwagpod.fm and find us on Instagram or TikTok at chinwagpod or on Twitter at chinwag_pod.